The morning sun cast long shadows through the purple-leaf trees of Haven, the human colony world that had been home to the Wilson family for the past 3 years. Emma Wilson, their 8-year-old daughter, skipped along the worn dirt path that led into the glowing forest, her brown curls bouncing with each step. She carried her favorite specimen container, ready for another day of exploring. The Imperial ships hanging in the sky like dark clouds didn't bother her anymore. Everyone said they were there to protect the colony, even though her father Thomas would often mutter under his breath about them during dinner. Her mother Mary would always shake her head and change the subject when this happened. Emma had a secret. 3 days ago, she had found something special deep in the forest, crystals that glowed with their own light. They hummed when she got close, making her skin tingle in a way that felt friendly. She hadn't told anyone about them yet, not even her parents. This was her discovery. But someone had noticed her daily trips into the forest. The Imperial scientists, with their gleaming white uniforms and cold eyes, had been watching. They had detected unusual energy readings from the area where Emma explored, energy readings that made their instruments go crazy. That morning, as Emma reached her special spot, she found 3 Imperial officers waiting there. Their uniform badges marked them as part of the science division, but their stiff postures and sharp eyes reminded her more of the military patrols. "Child, you will tell us where you found the crystals," the tallest officer said. His voice wasn't friendly like her teacher's or warm like her father's. It was hard and cold like the metal of their ships. Emma clutched her specimen container closer. "I don't know what you mean," she said, taking a step back. The crystals in her pocket felt warm, almost like they were trying to warn her. The officer's face turned red. "We've tracked the energy signatures. We know you've been collecting them. These crystals are now Imperial property. Tell us where the main deposit is." "They're not yours," Emma said, her voice stronger than she felt. "They don't want to be taken. They're alive. I can feel it." The officer's hand moved faster than Emma could follow. The strike caught her across the face, sending her small body tumbling backward. She hit her head on a rock as she fell. The world spun, and the crystal in her pocket pulsed with a desperate energy. "Enough games," the officer growled. Reaching for her, "You will show us." A bright flash filled the forest. The crystal in Emma's pocket erupted with light, creating a barrier between her and the officers. But the energy surge was too much for her already injured body. The colony's security cameras caught everything. They recorded Emma's last breath, the officers' panic, and their clumsy attempts to hide what they had done. But the crystal's energy had already sent the truth racing through the colony's communication network. Within hours, the footage spread across human space. People watched in horror as one of their children died at the hands of their supposed protectors. They saw the Imperial officers try to destroy the evidence. They saw the crystal's final protective burst, preserving the truth even as its young discoverer slipped away. Thomas and Mary Wilson's grief echoed across the stars. Their daughter's death became a symbol of Imperial cruelty and arrogance. As Emma's body was prepared for burial, the crystals from her pocket continued to glow, their light a testament to something pure that had been destroyed by Imperial greed. In the highest offices of Earth's government, leaders watched the footage in silence. They looked at each other with grim understanding. The time for pretending had ended. Humanity had been preparing for this moment, hiding their true strength, waiting to see the Empire's true face. Now they had seen it, and the price of that knowledge was far too high. The Empire had killed a child. They would soon learn why that was the worst mistake they could have made. The United Earth Government building stood tall against the night sky of New Geneva. Inside the emergency chamber, 30 world leaders watched the footage from Haven for the 6th time. Nobody spoke as the recording ended. The only sound was Thomas Wilson's quiet sobbing from the witness stand. "They called it a regrettable accident," General Roberts said, breaking the silence. His weathered face showed the anger everyone felt. "The Empire claims their officer was defending himself from a suspected security threat." Mary Wilson stood up, her grief turning to rage. A security threat. My daughter was 8 years old. The chamber's screens lit up with a new transmission. The Empire's response played out in cold, formal language. They offered 10,000 credits as compensation for the unfortunate incident. The amount was an insult, barely enough to buy supplies for a small colony farm. "Show them," Mary said, her voice steady now. She placed Emma's crystal on the chamber's central podium. It pulsed with soft light, responding to the emotions in the room. General Roberts nodded to his aide. The chamber's lights dimmed, and new images filled the screens. Hidden bases on Mars, deep beneath Europa's ice, and scattered through the asteroid belt. Massive ships, far more advanced than anything the Empire had seen from Earth. Weapons that could pierce Imperial shields as if they weren't there. "We've been preparing for 15 years, Roberts explained, "ever since we found the first signs of Imperial cruelty on other worlds. The Empire thinks we're simple colonists, barely able to manage basic spaceflight. They never wondered why we accepted their protection so easily." The screens showed more. Training facilities hidden under ocean floors, quantum computers disguised as primitive data centers, shield technology that could withstand the Empire's strongest weapons. Earth had built an army in secret, all while pretending to be a helpless young species. "There are others," Thomas Wilson said, finding his voice. "Other species who lost children to Imperial accidents. We've been in contact with them through hidden channels. They're ready to help us, ready to fight." The Earth President stood, her face lit by the crystal's glow. "The Empire believes we're primitive because we value life, because we care for our children, because we help our neighbors. They see kindness as weakness." She paused, looking at each leader in turn. "We will show them how wrong they are." Across Earth and every human colony, military bases emerged from their hiding places. Ships rose from underground bunkers, from beneath oceans, from cloud cities on Venus. Weapons powered up, crews took their positions, and communication networks switched to secure channels that the Empire knew nothing about. The crystal on the podium pulsed brighter, revealing a holographic map of Imperial space. More crystals had been found, each one holding pieces of a puzzle that humanity had slowly solved. They showed weaknesses in Imperial defenses, paths through supposedly secure sectors, and connections to ancient powers that the Empire had tried to erase from history. "The Empire took my daughter's life," Mary Wilson said, standing next to her husband. "But they also showed us their true nature. No more children will die because we were too afraid to fight." The Earth President pressed her hand against the voting panel. One by one, every world leader did the same. The decision was unanimous. "Send the message," the President ordered. Across Imperial space, every human colony transmitted the same signal. Earth and all human worlds were withdrawing from the Empire's protection treaty. But this was just the official notice. The real message would come soon, delivered by ships and weapons the Empire never knew existed. The Empire had killed a child, thinking there would be no consequences. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Humanity had hidden its strength for years, waiting and watching. Now finally, it was time to show the galaxy what humans could do when pushed too far. Operation Child's Dawn began at exactly midnight Earth time. 500 human ships appeared simultaneously above Imperial military bases across 20 systems. They had been there for hours, hidden by stealth technology that the Empire had never imagined possible. On the bridge of humanity's flagship, Emma's Memory, Thomas Wilson watched the tactical display. His wife Mary stood beside him, her hand resting on the crystal embedded in the ship's control panel. The crystal network they had discovered through their daughter's sacrifice now powered humanity's most advanced weapons. "All ships report ready," the tactical officer announced. "Imperial bases are still unaware of our presence." Thomas looked at the holographic image of the Imperial base below them. Somewhere in that complex was the officer who had killed Emma. "Begin the operation," he ordered. Across Imperial space, Human ships dropped their stealth fields. The Empire's sensors finally detected them, but it was already too late. Quantum phase beams sliced through Imperial shields as if they weren't there. Precision strikes disabled weapons, communications, and power systems. The Imperial commander on the base below watched in horror as his primitive human targets bypassed his most advanced defenses. His emergency transmission to the Imperial capital cut off mid-sentence as the quantum jammers activated. "This is Thomas Wilson to all Imperial forces," his voice broadcast across every Imperial channel. "For years, you've killed our people and called them accidents. You murdered my daughter Emma and thought there would be no consequences. You were wrong." The Empire's response ships arrived exactly where humanity's strategic AI had predicted. They emerged from hyperspace into carefully prepared killing zones. Their shields, calibrated to stop energy weapons, did nothing against the phase-shifted missiles that passed right through them. Mary's hands moved across the crystal-enhanced controls, directing the fleet's movements with impossible precision. The crystals had shown them how to navigate hyperspace in ways the Empire had never discovered. Human ships jumped in and out of battle faster than Imperial gunners could track. Imperial reinforcements arriving in Sector 7, the tactical officer reported. "Right on schedule," Mary said. Their ships were herding the Imperial forces exactly where they wanted them. The Imperial admiral watched in disbelief as his mighty fleet was systematically dismantled by ships that shouldn't have been able to leave their own solar system. His sensors showed impossible things: human vessels appearing and disappearing, weapons that ignored shields, and energy readings that defied Imperial science. A massive Imperial dreadnought, pride of their fleet, powered up its main gun to destroy a human colony. The beam fired, but instead of destroying the colony, it hit a quantum mirror. The reflected energy cut the dreadnought in half. "All primary targets neutralized," the tactical officer reported. "Imperial forces are in full retreat from all 20 systems." Thomas looked at the casualty reports. The human fleet had disabled or destroyed over 300 Imperial ships and bases. Their own losses were minimal, exactly as planned. They had spent years studying Imperial tactics, preparing counters for every strategy. "Send the second message," Mary ordered. Every Imperial screen lit up with images from 100 worlds. Children of different species lying dead after accidents, Imperial officers giving cold explanations, grieving parents being offered insulting compensation, and finally, Emma's last moments, the crystal's light trying to protect her. "You thought we were weak because we valued life." Thomas's voice carried across Imperial space. "Because we spent our time building homes instead of weapons. You never asked why we accepted your protection so easily. You never wondered what we were really building." The crystal network pulsed with power, revealing more Imperial secrets. Hidden prison camps filled with species who had resisted. Mass graves on worlds that had dared to question Imperial rule. The truth broadcast across the galaxy, impossible to stop or deny. "This is only the beginning." Mary's voice joined her husband's. "We're coming for all of you, every officer who killed a child, every leader who called it an accident, every one of you who thought you could hurt our children and walk away." The first strike was over. The real war was about to begin. The Imperial palace shook with the Emperor's rage. Screens showed the smoking ruins of 20 military bases, the burning wreckage of their finest ships. 300 years of unchallenged Imperial power had been broken in a single day by a species they had dismissed as primitive. "Send everything we have," the Emperor commanded. "Every ship, every soldier. Crush these humans and their colonies. Show the galaxy what happens to those who dare challenge Imperial power." 10,000 Imperial warships jumped into hyperspace, the largest fleet ever assembled. They emerged near Earth's colonies, weapons charged, ready to deliver a devastating lesson. But the humans were waiting for them. The Imperial Admiral smiled as his sensors detected only a few hundred human ships. "Surrender now," he broadcast, "and we will make your deaths quick." The response came in the form of strange energy readings that rippled across space. Thousands of hidden defense platforms activated around every human world. Fields of quantum mines materialized, trapping the Imperial fleet in a web of destructive energy. "You still think like bullies." Mary Wilson's voice came through every Imperial command channel, always assuming that bigger numbers mean certain victory. The human ships began moving in patterns that made no sense to Imperial tacticians. They seemed to flicker in and out of reality, appearing where they couldn't possibly be. The crystal network that Emma had discovered was rewriting the rules of space combat. The Empire launched their biological weapons, viruses designed to target human DNA. But these too had been anticipated. Quantum fields around the human worlds broke down the viral agents instantly. Years of studying Imperial tactics had prepared humanity for every dirty trick. "Did you think we wouldn't be ready?" Thomas Wilson asked as another Imperial battle group fell into a carefully prepared trap. "Did you think we spent the last 15 years just hiding and hoping you wouldn't hurt us again?" On a dozen Imperial worlds, the truth about Emma's death and countless other accidents played on every screen. The Empire's own people watched in horror as the evidence of Imperial cruelty became impossible to ignore. Riots broke out in Imperial cities. Colonial forces meant to support the attack on Earth refused to leave their posts. The Emperor ordered his personal guard to release the forbidden weapons, planet killers that could turn worlds to ash. The orders never reached the ships. Human quantum hackers, their skills enhanced by crystal technology, had already taken control of the Empire's communications. "Your own people are turning against you." Mary broadcasts as another Imperial squadron fell to human weapons. "They've seen the truth you tried to hide. They know about the children you killed, the worlds you destroyed, the lives you ruined." Imperial captains watched in disbelief as their most powerful weapons proved useless against human defenses. Shields that had protected Imperial ships for centuries might as well have been paper. The humans had spent years studying every weakness, preparing countermeasures for every strategy. The Emperor's grand fleet was falling apart. Ships were trapped in quantum webs, destroyed by weapons they couldn't detect, or simply disappeared into space-time anomalies created by the crystal network. Those that could still flee were already running. "This is just the beginning," Thomas announced to the retreating Imperial ships. "We'll keep coming. For every child you killed. For every world you ruined. For every lie you told. There's nowhere in this galaxy you can hide from us now." The crystal network pulsed with power, revealing more Imperial secrets. Hidden bases began appearing on tactical displays. Secret weapon caches were exposed to waiting human strike teams. The Empire's carefully built web of power was unraveling strand by strand. In the Imperial palace, the Emperor watched his mighty fleet retreat in disgrace. For the first time in Imperial history, fear crept into the throne room. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were winning. And they weren't going to stop until the Empire paid for every life it had taken. Deep within the captured Imperial data center, human intelligence officers made a discovery that changed everything. The crystals Emma had found weren't just weapons or tools. They were keys to something far older than the Empire itself. "Look at this," Mary Wilson said, pointing to the ancient star charts appearing through the crystal interface. "These crystals are part of a network built by a civilization that existed millions of years before the Empire. They weren't meant for war. They were meant to connect worlds." Thomas studied the glowing patterns. The Empire found traces of this network centuries ago, but they could never make it work. They didn't understand that the crystals respond to emotion, to connection, to love. On the tactical screens, more human ships emerged from hyperspace near the Imperial capital. They carried representatives from dozens of species, all victims of Imperial cruelty. All of them had lost children to accidents. All of them had watched their worlds bow under Imperial threats. "Imperial defense grid is targeting our ships," the tactical officer reported. Mary placed her hand on the bridge's crystal panel. The entire network lit up at once, responding to the combined grief and determination of thousands of parents who had lost their children to Imperial violence. Energy coursed through ancient pathways that had laid dormant for millions of years. The Imperial capital's defense grid went dark. Every weapon, every shield, every security system shut down at once. The crystals had recognized the Empire as a threat to life itself and had activated their original programming to protect and connect, not to destroy. "We're receiving transmissions from inside the capital," Thomas announced. "Imperial citizens are rising up. They're demanding answers about the dead children, about the hidden prison camps, about everything we exposed." The Emperor's personal guard began deserting their posts. The evidence of Imperial crimes, broadcast across every system, had broken their loyalty. Crystal-powered quantum transmitters made sure no Imperial censorship could stop the truth from spreading. In orbit above the capital, Mary watched as Imperial ships changed their identification codes, declaring themselves free of Imperial control. The crew of these ships had seen too much, learned too much, to keep following orders that led to killing children. "The Imperial High Command is trying to evacuate," the tactical officer reported. "They're heading for their secret bunker system." Thomas smiled for the first time since Emma's death. "Let them run. The crystals have already shown us every tunnel, every hidden door. There's nowhere left for them to hide." The crystal network pulsed again, stronger than ever. It wasn't just responding to human commands now. It was awakening fully, recognizing the first species in millions of years that understood its true purpose. Not conquest, but connection. Not power, but protection. "Multiple Imperial worlds are declaring independence," Mary announced. "They're asking for our help to remove Imperial control systems, to free themselves." The Empire had ruled through fear, crushing any sign of resistance, but they had never faced an enemy who had spent years preparing, who had discovered the very technology their power was built on, who had turned their own secrets against them. Above the Imperial capital, Thomas and Mary watched as the sun rose over a changed galaxy. The Empire's grip was breaking. The truth they had tried to bury was free. The power they had stolen was returning to those who would use it wisely. "Emma would have understood the crystals better than any of us," Mary said softly. "She knew they were alive. She tried to protect them, just like they tried to protect her." The crystal on the bridge pulsed with a gentle light, as if responding to her words. The network that had helped humanity break the Empire's military might was revealing its greater purpose: to heal, to connect, to protect. The Empire had killed a child who understood this ancient power better than their scientists ever had. Now that power was helping to ensure no other children would die at Imperial hands. The Imperial officer who had killed Emma Wilson sat in his hidden bunker, watching his world collapse. The Empire he had served loyally for 30 years was falling apart system by system. Outside, the streets of the Imperial capital filled with protesters carrying images of dead children, victims of Imperial justice. Warning alarms screamed as the bunker's doors melted away. Thomas and Mary Wilson walked in, their faces illuminated by the glow of crystals they carried. The officer reached for his weapon, but it turned to dust in his hands. Ancient crystal technology breaking down Imperial tools of death. "Do you remember her?" Mary asked quietly, holding up an image of Emma. "Do you remember killing our daughter because she wouldn't tell you where to find these?" She held up a crystal that pulsed with gentle light. The officer's arrogance crumbled as he realized the full weight of what his actions had started. "I was following orders," he whispered. "The Empire needed those crystals. The Empire needed control," Thomas said. "But Emma understood something you never could. These crystals weren't meant to be weapons. They were meant to bring life, to connect worlds. She felt it. That's why she tried to protect them from you." Across the galaxy, Imperial worlds were declaring their independence. The crystal network had exposed every dark secret, every hidden crime. Imperial citizens watched in horror as the true history of their empire played out on every screen. Centuries of murdered children, destroyed worlds, and crushed dreams. On 1,000 worlds, imperial flags burned. Statues of emperors fell. Prison camps opened their doors as imperial guards threw down their weapons and surrendered. The Empire's iron grip on the galaxy was turning to rust and breaking apart. The crystal network hummed with increasing power. Ancient machines buried beneath planetary surfaces awakened, responding to the emotions of billions of newly freed beings. Machines that had waited millions of years for species who would use them with wisdom instead of greed. "Your empire killed my daughter for trying to protect these crystals," Mary told the officer, her voice steady. "Now those same crystals are helping to free every world you enslaved, every child you threatened, every species you tried to crush." Through the crystal network, they could see it all happening. Imperial warships changing their colors as crews mutinied against officers who had ordered atrocities. Imperial governors surrendering to their own people. The Empire's mighty armies laying down their weapons as the truth became impossible to deny. "What are you going to do to me?" the officer asked, fear finally breaking through his imperial training. "We're going to let you live," Thomas answered. "You'll stand trial for what you did to Emma. You'll face justice, real justice, not imperial justice. And you'll watch as everything you helped build crumbles away." The crystals pulsed brighter, sharing images across the galaxy. Humans working alongside other species to dismantle imperial control centers. Former enemies becoming allies. Children from different worlds playing together without fear, just as Emma had once played in the forests of Haven. The Empire taught that strength came from fear, Mary said, watching the revolution unfold across the galaxy. Emma knew better. She knew strength comes from protecting others, from connecting with them, from trying to understand them. The officer looked at the crystal network's display in disbelief. The Empire had ruled for centuries through fear and force. Now it was falling not to superior weapons, but to the very connections it had tried to break, to the truth it had tried to bury, to the hope it had tried to crush. "Your empire died the moment you killed our daughter," Thomas said quietly. "You just didn't know it yet. Emma's death showed everyone the truth about imperial power. Now they're choosing something better." The revolution that began with one child's death was reshaping the galaxy. The Empire's reign of fear was ending, replaced by something that Emma had understood instinctively: the power of connection, of protection, of love. 1 year after the fall of the Empire, Haven Colony looked different. The forest where Emma Wilson had first found the crystals had grown more vibrant, the purple leaves now shimmering with traces of crystal energy. Children from a dozen different species played where imperial ships once cast shadows. The Great Hall of Justice on the former imperial capital was packed. The Emperor and his highest officers stood in the dock, facing charges from representatives of every world they had tyrannized. But the first case, the one that had started it all, belonged to a single child. Emma Wilson. The Chief Justice Reed, age 8, killed by imperial decree for protecting crystal formations that the Empire sought to weaponize. The justice looked at the former emperor. "This single act of cruelty began your empire's fall. Do you understand why?" The emperor, stripped of his grand robes and imperial tokens, looked older and smaller now. "We thought we were strong," he said quietly. "We thought strength came from making others fear us. We were wrong." Thomas and Mary Wilson sat in the front row, holding hands. The crystal network hummed around them, connecting the courtroom to every world in the former empire. Everyone would witness this moment of justice. "The empire is no more," the Chief Justice announced. "Its leaders will spend their lives helping to rebuild the worlds they damage. And here, on Haven, we will build something new. The Emma Wilson Memorial will stand as a reminder of what happens when power serves fear instead of hope." Outside the courtroom, the galaxy was changing. The crystal network, now fully awakened, was helping different species understand each other in ways the Empire had always prevented. Ancient technologies were being used to heal damaged worlds, to feed hungry populations, to connect distant colonies. The new Galactic Council met in a chamber built around a garden. At its center stood a single crystal, the one Emma had carried in her pocket on that last day. It pulsed with gentle light, reminding everyone of why they were there: not to rule, but to protect; not to dominate, but to connect. The Emma Wilson Foundation announces its first initiative. Mary spoke to the council. We will build schools on every world, where children of all species can learn together, where they can understand each other, where they can grow up without fear. The Crystal Network responded to her words, showing images of the future they were building. Former imperial worlds transformed into places of learning and growth. The Empire's weapons turned into tools for exploration and discovery. Children who once would have feared each other now played and learned together. Emma understood something we had forgotten, Thomas told the council. She knew that real strength comes from protecting others, from helping them grow, from working together instead of fighting. On Haven, where it had all begun, a memorial garden took shape in the forest where Emma had played. The crystals there grew in patterns that created music, soft, gentle songs that reminded everyone of a child's laughter. Children from across the galaxy came to learn the true history of how the Empire fell. The old Imperial officer who had killed Emma worked there now, tending the garden as part of his sentence. He told visitors the story of his greatest mistake and how it had led to the Empire's downfall, how the death of one child had shown the galaxy a better way to live. The Crystal Network spread across the stars, growing stronger as more species learned to use it with wisdom and care. It connected worlds the Empire had tried to keep apart. It healed wounds the Empire had caused. It protected the weak ones the Empire would have crushed. And in the heart of Haven's forest, where new purple leaves danced in the wind, children played without fear under open skies. They grew up learning about Emma Wilson, who had died protecting something she knew was precious, who had shown the galaxy that the greatest power comes not from making others afraid, but from having the courage to protect what you love.